We are back here on the Zeise is Right show. Jason Mackey in for Paul Zeise, who was on vacation. I'm Adam Bittner, assistant sports editor for Multimedia. We are talking Pirates after the Rowdy Tellez debacle, brouhaha, whatever you'd like to call it. Jason, I thought, articulated things well in your first 10 podcast on the situation. So I'm not going to dwell too much on the minutia of the decision that was made and your thoughts on that. But you said earlier in the week before this happened that you didn't think that the Pirates were going to move on from Ben Cherington, that you thought it would be too disruptive. Have your feelings changed on that? And I'm going to add a clarifying question. Did you say that because you think another, possible tank job follows a Ben Cherington firing, and that perhaps Bob Nutting is not ready to push that button and start from zero yet?
Okay, let me work through that. I said that because I don't think they're going to – I've never gotten the sense being around this team, Adam, that they're ready for that full scale of a move. That's essentially saying our 5-year plan stinks, it's broken, we're going to craft a new one. A GM in baseball is just responsible for so many things. And you know this, but let me articulate it just, pro scouting, amateur scouting, development, international stuff, minor leagues, sort of the logistics and minutia and all this stuff. The major league team, players coming in and out, arbitration, et cetera. And there are times to blow that all up, believe me. I just don't think the Pirates right now have the appetite to do that. So that's why I've said what I've said about Cherington. And no, I don't expect him to go anywhere. But there are going to be significant changes this offseason surrounding Cherington. I feel confident saying that. And I kind of lost track of the question, Adam, but I mean, the talking point is the same. They're not going to go into another full-scale rebuild, but I don't think there's anybody at 115 Federal thinking that things are good right now either.
No, I think you answered it well, Jason. I think the big question a lot of people have is, what is the justification? You look at the guy's resume and see very little, and I think that's a good articulation. I dispute whether it is necessary, and I think you did a great job with your column on the Kansas City Royals of it doesn't have to be a 5-year plan. It doesn't have to be this long-term turnaround. We've seen that in town with the Penguins where they weren't getting what they wanted out of Ron Hextall. They moved on. They didn't say we're blowing things up because we're changing GMs here. But do you think that is still how Bob Nutting thinks about it? Who's the only person that matters? Right.
I do. And I don't think Bob's the least bit happy about this. But you know what? You know what's fascinating about the Pirates, Adam? I don't think they need or should blow it up. This is a better team than what's on the field. That's both, I think, a good thing and a bad thing that they have really underperformed this season. This should be an 83, 84 win team. Look at their rotation and look at the rotation they're going to have going into next year. I really like Skenes, Jones, Keller, Luis Ortiz, Bailey Falter. Then you've got Johan Oviedo, Bubba Chandler, Thomas Harrington, et cetera, waiting in the wings. You're going to have money to spend. Go spend it on a first baseman. Every dollar they spend this offseason should be on major league payroll. And they have pieces around which to build. Joey Bart, Brian Reynolds, O'Neill Cruz, et cetera. Not to, relitigate everything, but this team is not in sour shape. They've just played very poorly this season, and they need to get to the bottom of why. I think the hitting program stinks. I think their bullpen preparedness and management stinks. I think they haven't done a good enough job in pro scouting. I know they're making changes there, research development, et cetera. I mean, there are – I don't know, valves to turn, if that's the right way to put it, things you can change without blowing it up to really get this team back to contention fairly quickly. And I expect them to do that. And you know what? I still think this team can be halfway decent next year, but making meek and mediocre moves is not going to do it.
Well, and that's what we've seen from Ben Cherington. So I think I want to attack the question this way, Jason. It's October 2025. Ben Cherington has been canned. You have maybe you have a slightly better season, but it still doesn't meet expectations. Sure. You're whatever McKinsey bean counter, Bob Nutting, was impressed by his PowerPoint presentation. Can you win within the 2 years you likely have left of Paul Skenes? Because I think Paul Skenes is the defining, figure in the future of this team. Could it be possible, especially because you said Bob Nutting looks at firing a GM as, we're starting over? Could we be talking about the end of Paul Skenes in Pittsburgh next season if things don't turn around? Because a new GM might view him as the one chip he has to turn things around quickly.
Would you stop with the doomsday stuff? Come on, Adam. No, I'm kidding. I appreciate it, and I think probably a lot of fans worry that way. I get it. No, I don't think that's a realistic scenario. I mean, they could move on from Ben Cherington next season. Like if things stink, if Cherington doesn't spend free agent dollars better, if he doesn't make better trades, if the on-field performance, if the roster isn't strong enough, yeah, that could absolutely happen. I don't think you're looking at just 4 years of Paul Skenes. Like they've got 6 in team control, and I'd be very surprised at this point if they want to lose a lot of that. Like, yeah, you could probably trade him and capitalize on some years left. Get more value back. I don't think that's where they go with this. I think they try to maximize how much they have of Paul left, and I do think that they can still maximize. I mean, they have young pitching. That much I'm confident of with the Pirates. If you have young pitching, you should be able to build around the rest. I mean, look at what the Guardians have done. Look at what the Rays have done. Like they have gotten their own pitching. That's sort of the foundation that has supported the house they've built, especially the Guardians. And I'm not saying it's going to work out in perpetuity for the Pirates. I mean, I hope it does for their sake. But if you've got young pitching, I think you absolutely have a chance. And the Pirates have that. And it's just a matter of, making the right free agent signings. It's a matter of reaching guys that you've spent draft capital on, i.e. Henry Davis. Like maybe he wasn't a 1-1 pick, but the industry thought him as like a top 10 pick. He was a legitimate draft pick. He should be able to contribute in the major leagues right now. He's not, and that's on the Pirates. I don't know if that's on the hitting side, the development side, what they're doing with Henry that's not working, but they sure as heck need to get to the bottom of it. Jack Sawinski hit 26 home runs last year. Those weren't fake. Like that, you don't accidentally hit 26 home runs, and the Pirates have screwed him up, and they need to figure out why he screwed up, and they need to get back to him contributing. So anyway, it's a long-winded way of saying I think there's more that goes into it, and I don't necessarily think that the Paul Skenes window is screwed or they're going to blow what they have with Paul Skenes. I'm not there.
Yeah, I think the origin of that fear is, there's almost nobody, Jason, that they let get to the end of their arbitration window. They either trade them or they sign them. And to Bob Nutting's credit, there has been, through, and I even go back to the Huntington years, you signed Marte, you signed McCutchen, you signed Polanco, even though that didn't work out. They have made moves, but they rarely, there's rarely that third option of they let a guy get to the end of his eligibility. So that's why I wonder.
And they've never signed 3 long-term contract extensions in 3 consecutive seasons either. Stuff changes. I'm not saying they make every move right, but like there's nothing that's preventing them from doing business differently with Skenes.
Yeah, and he's an exceptional talent, and you would hope that they would make an exception for him. I just think based on precedent, that's something that people could legitimately fear. I wanted to ask you about, or did you have something else on that?
No, I'm just agreeing.
Okay. I just wanted to ask about the comment Jeff Passan made on the Pat McAfee show, saying that he felt bad for Ben Cherington because, quote, there simply is not money to go out and win. It puts you in a position to make moves like this, referring to Rowdy Tellez, cutting him 4 plate appearances short of a $200,000 roster bonus. That kind of like made the hair on the back of my head stand up, because this wasn't some guy saying it. This was ESPN's ultimate insider. They're MLB's Woj, the Adam Schefter of MLB over there, saying that they are literally litigating things down to $200,000 in an industry where there are $300 million payrolls. Is it that grim, Jason? That $200,000 matters? And what did you think of that comment?
No, Jeff Passan's entitled to think whatever he wants, Adam. But I don't see the dollar amount as prohibitive for the Pirates being good. Just for entertainment purposes, I'm working on a Sunday piece right now, and I was looking at what the Pirates have spent under Bob Nutting's ownership and what it has got them. They've obviously made the playoffs in 3 years, won no division titles. But okay, in that same time, the Rays, they've spent only slightly more. They've made the playoffs 9 times and have won 4 division titles. The Athletics have made the playoffs 6 times and won 3 division titles. The Guardians have made the playoffs 7 times and won 6 division titles. So is it money holding the Pirates back, or is it making poor baseball moves? They're all right around the Pirates when it comes to spending. Like, should they spend more, or should they be smarter? I'd take the latter. Yeah, it's not great. I'm not sitting here and saying that like Bob shouldn't spend money. They shouldn't increase payroll. Payroll doesn't matter. But like, you can do it without spending a lot of money. There are other models that produce, let me go back to the spreadsheet here. 7, 6, 9. I mean, we're talking about 22 playoff appearances in the span where the Pirates made 3, that they've spent as much as the Pirates. So is the problem dollars, or is the problem how you're spending those dollars? And I look at this offseason, man, like they spent, I think, roughly $37 million, and they got like 1.3 wins above replacement per Baseball Reference. And like one of those was Andrew McCutchen. That's spending the money you do have extremely poorly. And people can get frustrated over Ben Cherington. I'm not saying they shouldn't. I'm not saying that they've done things right. They haven't. But they've spent enough for what should be a competitive product on the field. They've just screwed it up.
Yeah, and I think the outraging thing about this Rowdy Tellez situation is not that the payroll is not $200 million. I think most 98% of the Pirates fan base operates in the world where you're never going to have a payroll like that, and that's fine. People accept that as the cost of doing business. It's are things so bad that you're really like looking in shoes for $200,000, or if you can't find it, then you got to cut Rowdy Tellez. I mean, my read of the situation is if you're giving out these $100 million extensions to guys, like you said, every year for the past 3 years, that it shouldn't be that bleak. But I think that's what makes this whole situation that much more frustrating.
Let me make a point here. What the Pirates did with Paul Skenes and Jared Jones cost them more money in terms of like service down the road, whatever. They made a move there that was not financially motivated. Nobody's talking about that. They also stuck with Rowdy Tellez when they otherwise could have DFA'd him. That's not a move that had any financial implications. He was guaranteed the salary. But, I mean, we wouldn't be talking about this if they would have DFA'd him in late May. Here's where I come down on this move. I mean, that's just like context around it and stuff that I hear. What the Pirates did, I thought was just I thought it was dumb because I think it raises alarm bells that didn't need to be raised. Like, I don't think finances are that bleak, that things are that bad. Like I said, they spent $37 million on free agents and trade acquisitions this offseason. That's a reasonable amount for where they've been at. The past 3 years, they've given long-term extensions. Like I said, to Reynolds, Keller, and Hayes. They should be commended for that. But what they did with Tellez is unnecessarily stupid. And it screws all of that. Like, they handled Paul Skenes the exact way they should have handled Paul Skenes. And everybody forgets about that because they made a boneheaded move with Rowdy Tellez that everybody says, oh, here are the Pirates being cheap again. Like, it would have been easier just to pay the $200,000 bonus and not give bad press. Here's another one for you, Adam. What if they would have played Tellez on Monday, given him his 4 plate appearances, and then DFA him, and then leak to me or Noah or anybody else covering the team, say like, hey, this is why we did this. We wanted Rowdy to get his bonus. We also want the roster spot. We figured this was the most amenable thing. All of a sudden, that story comes out where Bob Nutting pays $200,000 where he didn't have to. People are like, oh, wow, maybe it's a different kind of Bob Nutting. And I mean, obviously they didn't do that. What irritates me is that, then people take this and run with it. And you have Jeff Passan on Pat McAfee's show talking about how stupid and cheap the Pirates are. Like, is it worth the $200,000 you saved at this point? No, absolutely not.
Yeah, it's done a lot more damage than that, I would think, to the business. Jason, I've got a couple more questions. One on Penn State, Illinois this week, but I wanted to get your thoughts on this. The organizational talent, mouthpieces, the broadcasters have spent a good chunk of this year arguing that the Diamondbacks of last season could be the model for the Pirates of this season, get 84 wins, slide into the playoffs. It's kind of been like a whole 84 wins, And now we're here at the end, and the bar for the playoffs in the National League is probably going to be closer to 89, 90 wins to get in with that wild card spot. Depending upon how the Pirates finish, that could be 13, 14, 15 game spread between where the Pirates are and where the teams they're competing with to get into the playoffs are. How do you look at that situation of if they have to win 90 next year to get in, can they?
No, I don't see it. Well, that's going to be very tough. Very tough. I mean, look at so I think they finished with about 76 or 77 wins, Adam, and that's below where they should be. They should be, I think, 83, 84 wins. They're kind of behind schedule there, right? But I don't know. I think it's a bit of an anomaly. I don't think it's going to take this many wins normally to get in. I don't blame that on, like, you're saying the organizational mouthpieces or whatever. I mean, I don't know if I agree with that. Like, I looked at that too, thinking how many
how many wins are going to get you in the wild card conversation? I think a lot of people probably thought about 85. And I think that's reasonable for the Pirates. And I think, if anybody would have come out and said, hey, well, I think the Pirates are going to jump from 76 wins to 90, like you would call them insane. It's reasonable to think that they can go from 76 to 84. And that's about what the cutoff was. So that's where the conversation I see is, obviously the Pirates weren't good enough this year. I'm not saying that they were. And I think probably the rest of baseball was a little bit better. I think it's kind of an odd, you don't have a bunch of like 100-win teams and then really crappy teams. There's kind of like more of a squished middle there. And that, to me, has resulted in the wild card teams, like you said, getting in with about 88 or 89.
Penn State, Illinois this week, Jason, is the big college football game. Neither Pitt nor West Virginia play, so it's really just the Nittany Lions this week. Prime time. It's a ranked opponent. James Franklin's calling for whiteout energy in Happy Valley because, as we talked about on our Penn State podcast, he can't legally call for a second whiteout.
Okay, so I'm butting in there. Why can you not legally call for a second whiteout?
Because I believe the Winnipeg Jets own the it's either them or what I guess now would be the Utah franchise. One of those two owns the trademark to whiteout, and they struck a deal with Penn State where Penn State gets to have one whiteout per season. So now they've got to do these things like dance around. Last year they called it a sneaky whiteout, where they did the helmet stripe game against West Virginia, where I don't know, maybe 2,000 fans in the 110,000 seat stadium wore blue. And so James Franklin called it a sneaky whiteout last year. It is now a whiteout energy this year. But that's the energy he wants. How big is this game for perception to you, Jason, considering the way things have gone, considering the way the college football playoff bubble is going? Is this a big game for Penn State, or is it just a game that they're still expected to win regardless of whether Illinois is ranked or not?
Well, I think this is the toughest test that Penn State is going to face other than West Virginia, which is I'm not making a huge leap there. But I look at this as an opportunity for Penn State to flex its muscles. I look at this as an opportunity for Penn State to play a quality opponent, which they did not do last week. Probably a side conversation, something that I hate. But I look at it as sort of an sharpening iron sort of thing, where, Penn State needs to be cognizant probably more of anything than, UCLA, USC, obviously Ohio State, Washington, teams like that. Maybe Illinois is there at the end of this thing. I don't know. I don't know if I see that. But, this is not a team that should constitute or evaluate success based on beating Illinois. Penn State, this, Adam. I'm preaching to the choir here. But, success this season for Penn State is nothing short of the college football playoff and hopefully a win in the college football playoff. And that's not the same as beating Illinois. So I look at this. I want to see Drew Aller be elite. I want to see the offensive line be elite. I want to see this defense continue to, absolutely shut down opponents. I don't look at this like it should be two evenly matched teams. I look at this as like, Penn State needs to be able to show how much better it is than the Illinois of the world. And they need to show that, hey, we don't belong necessarily with them. Like, look, we view ourselves as a legitimate competitor to, I don't know, Ohio State or Texas or Alabama or whomever you want to pick.
Yeah, I think it's just interesting because Illinois has been a bad matchup, despite being a tier below Penn State. There was the 9 overtime game a couple of years ago. You go to Illinois last season. Drew Aller, it was the first time he really kind of struggled a little bit. You get 4 interceptions of Luke Altmaier. That kind of floats you to the end, but they did not dominate that game. And if Luke Altmaier doesn't throw 4 interceptions this week, what does that do? So I think it's an interesting test. But 18 points is, I think, a fair spread. I think they should cover that, and I think if they do, people will be feeling a lot better. Jason, any final thoughts on the week before we wrap up here?
No. Are you going to Penn State?
I am not going up this week. I am. The 3 a.m. getting home to Pittsburgh nights, I think, might be behind me, unless it's a really big game. I think, Illinois does not quite rise to the level of I want to be up till 3 a.m. the night before having to work for the Steelers at 1 p.m. or noon the following day. I'm getting old, Jason.
I would like to introduce you to these. There are these new things. They have them really everywhere. They're all over the place now, called hotel rooms. You can get one.
I'm too
I know
lazy.
not right in State College,
but they've been booked for months, Jason. I'm too lazy for that.
Drive to Altoona, man. It's a much easier time for you. That's my trick. I go to Altoona, stay in the night before. Although it's a night game, so
you might want to stay in Altoona the night after. Drive in the day of, stay a night after. But either way, should be fun, man. I'm going to be watching that one in Indianapolis. Ray and I head there at about 10 on Saturday. I'm looking forward to Steelers-Colts. I really am. I've never been to Lucas Oil Stadium. I've been there for the Combine, but I never actually went to the press box and watched a game there. Obviously been to Indy a lot for baseball. So looking forward to seeing a Colts game.
Yeah, should be fun. Make sure you're subscribed, everyone, to the channel. We're going to have a lot more coming. Chris Carter will be back with the North Shore Drive on Friday. I will be with Chris after the game for our post-game live stream on Sunday. And then obviously we have tons of Steelers reaction on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Make sure you subscribe. Jason Mackey is also the host of First 10. If you haven't checked him out yet there, please do. And if you like this video, please pop that like button, help us out with the YouTube algorithm. We always appreciate that. Thanks for your time today, everyone. We'll talk to you again next week when Paul should be back in the slot.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.